Well, there are a lot of aha moments that we face all the time. There are things that are surprising us all the time about the stages that we're in as we move through them. One of the things I really appreciate about Jude at his stage, he's especially as a little boy, as a up and coming man, there's this strong drive in him for feelings of competence, and he has a really high desire for affirmation right now that I think at this stage is almost in excess of where his sister is.
Parents, it's time to celebrate. The new On Purpose Parents podcast, a Saddleback Parents podcast, has arrived for tips, ideas, and encouragement to help you win at being an on-purpose parent.
All right. Oh my goodness. What in the what?
What do we have here this morning?
Retro video game.
Retro video game meets, I was gonna say like
I'm kind of digging it.
Like what's that called? E
And drumline too. It got like a drumline feel.
EDM.
That's your high youth ministry coming through.
The show is about to begin.
Oh, I heard that.
Producer Chris. Was this the second or third week that you've kind
This
of
is like fourth
or fifth?
We've been doing this for a while now.
I don't know about that one. I actually don't know about the whole concept of
You
different theme music every time.
You like the peppy, happy,
I do.
feel
I
good,
do.
like makes you smile. Springy.
Yes.
You like the spring.
I think the fun of it is just watching your reactions.
Well, there you go.
time.
There you go. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of our On Purpose Parent podcast. As always, I'm Kurt Johnston, here with the amazing, the smart, the wonderful Grace Yoon.
So
and
true. So
also
true.
in the corner, who is speaking out of turn as he loves to do, our amazing producer, Chris, ladies and gentlemen.
Yay.
That was your cue to clap for
So
yourself,
I
producer
know. Where's
Chris.
the
Where's the
applause?
producer Chris, ladies and gentlemen? Producer Chris.
Yeah.
No?
No.
No applause button?
This is
Okay, something.
better.
Producer Chris seems a little melancholy today. He didn't start out that way, did we? What's going on over there? You okay?
Yeah, I got some nice spicy sweet tea
Okay.
that I'm drinking. That's
Yeah.
really good, and so I'm feeling good.
Fantastic. I had
Yeah.
tea this morning.
I also have tea.
Yeah, I had tea. I don't have it now. I had tea at a brand new coffee shop that I found.
Oh.
That I'm not telling anybody about because the current coffee shop close to our offices is basically like the remote office of the church. If you go in there, Doug, you know. Well, we
Yeah, Ministry Office 3.
Yes,
We have
Ministry
two
Office
official ones,
3,
and then we
yes.
have the one that's just offsite.
So if you go there, you're talking to everybody. But I found this other one that nobody really
No
knows
one's
about.
there.
And so, yeah, I went
it's
there
your
this morning
secret
at 7
spot.
a.m. since we didn't surf and got a lot of work done and had a tea. And nobody listening cares. So let's move on past. Huh?
Does it start with the letter E?
No, it does not.
Okay, then it's not the one I go to. So that's good.
And if it did, he wouldn't say yes. So
I'm not a very good speller, so it took me a second to think. Does it start with the letter E? No. It starts with the letter T, which is not. Anyway, enough of that. So glad everybody that's tuning in is listening. Our hope every single week is that if you're taking the time to join us, that this little podcast would put a smile on your face and give you some tips and some hope and some help on your parenting journey. As always, our stated goal at On Purpose Parents is to help you as parents raise your children to be lifelong followers of Jesus who are interdependent and want to make a kingdom contribution. And those three things, lifelong follower of Jesus, interdependency, making a kingdom contribution, are the things that we think are the very most important pieces of raising our kids. Obviously, there's a bunch of other stuff that goes into parenting. And that's why we're in the week 2. It's actually week 3 of our series, where every single week for what's going to end up being about 10 episodes, we're going to spend time interviewing a parent who is in a parenting stage that's uniquely connected to our On Purpose Parent plan as we work through ages 0 to 5. We had Colton Harker and Charlotte St. Hilaire as our guests.
Yep.
And this week, we're on week 1 of the next parenting stage, which is the elementary grades, basically, grades 1 through 5. We call that the stage where parents, your role is the crafter, because in this season you are primarily, now you're still a caregiver, obviously. Your second graders, your fifth graders aren't earning their own way in the world. You're still the caregiver, but you add to that this crafter hat, and the image or the analogy, I guess, is that the right word?
Yeah.
Analogy?
Yep.
The image we use for crafter is that it's in this age that you're really, mom and dad, you really are crafting your kids' character. You're crafting their faith. You're crafting their worldview. You're molding them, helping mold them into what the Lord has planned for their lives, and that you're in the very early stages of that. And the goal for you as parents here is that your kids you would begin to nurture the faith of your children. The goal for parents in the last stage of caregiving is that they would see and feel and experience your faith. The goal here for parents is that we would begin to nurture the faith of our children. And so that's a long introduction, but it's important so you understand the context of what we're talking about. We're super excited today.
Yay.
Grace, why don't you introduce our guest, since I was just rambling for so long?
Well, I'm just going to pass the mic over to our guest. If you could introduce yourself, give a little background on what you do, and share a little bit about your family. We heard your voice a little while ago. So those of our families that are listening, just audio and not YouTube, would have heard your voice and probably are wondering, who's that?
Who's
Who
that?
is
Who's
that?
that fourth voice?
Yeah.
Sorry for sneaking it ahead of time like that.
No, it's amazing. So I'll pass it to you. Who are you?
My name's Doug Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Thank you, Chris. Producer Chris and I go way back, so I have a feeling he's going to mess with me a lot today.
What, was producer Chris, was he your youth pastor when you were a teenager?
Yeah, he was.
He was.
Wow.
Yeah, I would not be in ministry today if it wasn't for Chris and Tina Reed.
Wow.
100%.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
My first ministry job was under Chris Reed at our previous church.
That's
so I
unbelievable.
owe a lot to him.
Wow.
Before you go on, Doug, I'm just going to hit a pause for a second, because this is a great opportunity to remind our parents of something that statistics and study and history bears this to be true, but Doug and Chris are like a tangible example of one of the keys to children following Jesus in their adult years is to have a relationship with an older believer other than mom and dad.
Yeah.
An older believer other than mom and dad. Not always a youth pastor. It could be a coach or an uncle or whoever, a neighbor, but a relationship with another adult beyond just mom and dad who loves Jesus, that takes an interest in the development of that child. And here we are. I mean,
Yeah,
this
that's
is
amazing.
awesome that Doug is largely who he is
Yeah.
because of Chris's influence. That's
Awesome.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Doug, your name is Doug.
Yes, I just moved into a new position at Saddleback as the associate Lake Forest campus pastor. So I work with our Lake Forest campus pastor to help lead this campus, care for our staff, and just kind of set direction. So that's been a lot of fun. That's brand new, so very much coming up to speed.
That's
thanks.
exciting.
Yeah, in fact, this
perfect
podcast is
position
like a nice reprieve from like a crazy coming up to speed season that I'm in. So just kind of chilling and talking with you guys is actually really
Yeah.
great. Little moment of pause. I served as our ministry pastor for a few years prior to that, so helping people find their shape, get plugged into ministry in the church, and that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
Been married to my wife Joyce it'll be 13 years next month, so we're going to be celebrating that. Really excited. So our marriage is exiting the tween years and entering the teen years.
Oh, yeah.
Joyce is just phenomenal. She's just this incredible mom, extremely sensitive and empathic and just caring and kind. Just a wonderful, wonderful person, and a really great person for God to pair me with, because I can be very focused and direct and a little rough around the edges, and she has been such a softening influence in my life and has helped bring out a lot of qualities that I don't know that they would have come out of me any other way. So she's just wonderful. We've got 2 kids, Amelia, who's going to be 10 next month, and she's just my baby girl. She took my heart from day one. She was born, and she had these great big dimples, and her dad has basically just been her belonging ever since then. But she's just creative. She's intuitive. She's conscientious. She's very extroverted and fun. So we just love Emmy to death. We call her Emmy for short. Jude is our 7-year-old. Our son, the youngest of the two. He is scary, smart, very sensitive. Just a little more introverted than his sister. So Emmy kind of breaks the ice whenever they're in a new place, and Jude kind of swoops in behind her and is like, "I am also here," and then he finds a way through that. But and Jude has with his mom what I have with Amelia. I mean, the two of them are just so beautifully bonded at this age, and I really love to see that. So,
Amazing. Wow. Your description of your family, it's like perfection. It was so good. It's like such a wonderful, lovely intro. It's like, that's like the feel good music for me, hearing someone talk about their family so well. It's like, oh, it feels so good. Well, before we dive into this stage and share with our listeners a little bit of your experience and maybe some things that we can glean and learn from this age and stage and some of the roles and goals parents have, we do have a little bit of an icebreaker.
all right, let's break it.
Oh no! You know what it is.
Producer Chris
You know
So
what it
prepare
is.
yourself.
on a sound effects. Like
He's on a hot streak.
yeah,
This is to present
The
this
pot
bowl.
of
his sound effects
perplexity.
finger.
So
Oh, I get to pick a thing?
producer Chris
The
really.
urn of ulcers.
Okay, I think there might be one more coming.
The tub of terror.
Okay,
The tub
rule of
of
threes. Thank you,
terror.
Chris. If you had left us hanging on two, I'd have been very mad.
Yeah.
So for our just audio listeners, I am holding this porcelain bowl that does not look like the tub of terror, or what did you say, the pot of perplexity? So don't be scared. But
It doesn't look menacing at all.
No,
does
it does
not
not
look
look
menacing at all.
menacing.
So this is producer Chris. Oh my goodness. This is a game that we play a lot with our kids, and our kids love it. So to break the ice, these are just what would you rather questions. So if you could
Okay.
pick 3, and we're
Oh,
just
3?
going, 3, and we'll just zip through them.
1, 2.
And get to know you just a little bit better before we dive into the really tough questions.
All right. Let's see. First one, would you rather go scuba diving or skydiving? That one's easy. Scuba diving all the way. Skydiving is not something I will ever do in my lifetime. No desire to do it. Doesn't seem sensible
say
to
that.
me.
I know.
Don't say that.
I feel like it's going to happen now.
I said that, and I went. And
Yeah?
had no
You
desire.
did?
Yeah, I went. I didn't even.
Did you go because someone set a
Yeah.
trap for you?
No, I went because somebody asked me to go as a favor for something else, and
And you said yes.
I said yeah.
I want to put this out there for any loved ones who might listen to this. Like, if you ever surprise me with skydiving, you think that's going to be a fun time, you're going to get me to do it. I'm not going to do it. You're going to lose your deposit. It's going to be bad. You're going to be unhappy. It's just not going to work out. I cannot see myself.
Yeah.
doing
but you
that.
have gone scuba diving.
I
Or
ha-
you would go scuba
I
diving.
would go scuba diving. Yeah, I'm pretty at home in the water. I love to swim and surf and
Snorkel? Do you go-
snorkel. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So scuba diving, yeah, I'd be totally fine with that.
That's cool.
It feels earthly. It feels like something that reasonably a person should do. Jumping out of a plane, I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. Any adventurers out there who love to do that kind of stuff. I don't want to like,
Did you say yuck?
Yeah.
They're yum.
yeah, like
Yuck anyone's
just
yum.
because I don't like it, I don't want to take the fun out of somebody that does like it.
That was a really
Okay,
cool
now Grace,
phrase.
Grace, you guys are the same age. Have you ever heard that?
I have never heard of that.
I don't want to yuck
want-
anybody's yum.
But I think I'm going
like
to use
it.
it now.
I do like
I'm going
it.
to try to use it today
Yeah.
at some point. I don't want to yuck
Well,
your
you're
yum. There we go. Okay, question number 2.
Number 2, would you rather live without hot water for showers and baths or live without a washing machine? Ugh.
That's
boy.
easy.
I mean, that's kind of easy. I'd live without the washing machine. Just wear the clothes into the shower. You wash them, just
Yeah.
wash them while you're in there. You know?
There you go.
Efficiency right there. Okay.
But the
Yeah.
hot water, the absence of hot water, according to that question, is not complete absence. It's just for showering
exactly.
and bathing.
Right.
Oh,
So I'd
You'd go with
I'd
that.
give that up.
And that's a thing now these
Take
days.
a 30-second shower. and
People
be done.
take cold showers.
Yeah,
it's
they'll do that
supposed to be.
cold
Yeah, the
plunge.
cold plunge is
Yeah.
so popular now.
Yeah.
So, well, there you go.
okay.
Last one.
All right, number 3. Would you rather have a live-in chef or a live-in cleaner? Oh man. Oh gosh. Yeah, that one's easy too.
That's
an
easy
easy
too,
one.
Yeah,
isn't it?
live-in cleaner for
Oh
sure.
gosh, man, me and Doug are not on the same
Really? No, I was
wavelength.
going
You're
to
the
say
opposite?
obvious
Yeah.
chef.
I love to cook. So to me, I love to cook. I
okay,
love
there
to
you go.
grill and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So that would be taking the. I mean, there are definitely days where it's like it'd be great to just
Yes.
come
but
home
all
to
in
that.
all, for you, that's like a fun hobby
overall.
almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I will go out of my way to cook, but cleaning is just one of those things that you just got to do.
I do not like cleaning, and my wife, I don't cook well. Rachel's a great cook, and yet
Yeah.
I think for us to have a live-in cook would be amazing. It's
The dream.
It's a
It's
dream.
the absolute
But the
dream.
gift to your wife is the cleaning all the time.
Well, she and I both clean, and are you saying that it's only the wife's
I
job
have
to
been to
clean?
your house.
I think you wanna be
have been
careful
to your
here, Chris.
house.
What's happening over there? I'm about to yuck your yum all over this place. Man.
nice.
I have been to your house a number of times
Yes.
and not seen you clean once.
Oh.
She is cleaning before and during and after.
That's
and
a
it's,
very limited sample. Very
Sample size.
limited sample size.
Observation.
all right.
Very. I've got chores. I've got chores
Yeah,
that
but
are
it
my
works out.
responsibility. Yeah.
Do you get the
My
stickers?
goodness.
stars?
Do you get the stickers?
What's
That's
happening
so
over
funny.
here?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for playing that game of Tub of Terror
Sure.
with us. So to kind of get to know you a little bit more and your family, can you start off by sharing what's been one of your maybe most memorable experiences as a parent so far?
Can I do one per kid?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds great.
One that really that I think is forever going to stick with me is so Jude, I mentioned earlier, is kind of he's more of an introverted guy. He's got his buddies, and when he's with his buddies, he's just full on. He's having a great time. But he can tend to be on the shyer side. And when he started T-ball a couple of years ago, it was quite an experience for him. He was kind of trying to gather the courage of going out in the field in front of people and working with a team and all that stuff. And it was a beautiful process for him. And I will never forget, and this actually goes back to the point you were making earlier, Kurt, about how, other adults who aren't our parents are so crucial. Jude had his first at-bats, during a game for his first T-ball team, and it was very scary for him. And he was getting pretty overwhelmed, and he was, I was kind of like, you got this, buddy. I'm in the dugout, and sending him out there. And he was just sort of dragging his bat, like freaked out, and the tears were already starting to come. But I'm like, I can't let him back down. I got to keep putting the wind at his back and say, let's go. And his coach at the time, who's become a good friend of ours, his name is Chris. Another Chris,
wow.
Chris, as it happens. Just an amazing coach who just was really kind and gentle with Jude in that moment. And I knew that I couldn't go comfort him because I thought that if I swooped in, it was gonna be too much of like the, okay, I can just kind of crumble into my dad kind of a thing. But with Chris, there was a sense of like, there's another guy who's setting a bar that I want to rise to. And Chris just gave him some great encouragement, gave him a pep talk right there at the plate. And Jude set up and he swung and got a great hit. And I was standing, at this point I had moved over to the first base coach position. So I watched him coming down the first base line after his hit with this giant grin on his face. And it was just this beautiful moment. And with Jude, we always try to lean into, yes, you're going to face a fear, but just try to think about how good you're going to feel afterwards. And so it was so sweet to be able to show him the video of himself running down the baseline with that big smile after he conquered his fear. And that just really unlocked a lot of, it was one rep in a process of exercising courage for him, which I'll forever treasure for sure. Emmy recently, especially Amelia, has shown a really she shows a lot of a mission mindset with her friends, and it's pretty neat to. And maybe we'll touch on that later on, but it's really sweet to see how her heart for her friends is starting to kick in. She's got some friends who come to KSG with her every Wednesday. KSG is Kids Small Groups, for anyone who may not be familiar at Saddleback. And recently, Emmy was sort of having this realization about the urgency around salvation and what that means for her friends. It was starting to really click for her. And a few weeks ago, this is actually pretty fresh, Joyce was taking all the kids to KSG, and as the kids jumped in the car, these two other girls, Emmy just point blankly asked them both, do you guys want to accept Jesus tonight? Wow. And one of them was like, yeah, I want to do that. And she ended up receiving Christ at KSG that night.
Wow.
And I was just so proud of her for just putting it out there and having the courage to just ask, just ask the question, And it ended up paying these great dividends, and it was really beautiful. We got to celebrate that as a family, which was really cool. So our kids are so different, but the things we celebrate in each of them are just precious in their own ways.
That's amazing.
That's
yeah.
really fun. So as we jump into talking about parenting in your current parenting stage, you have 2 kids. Both of your children are in this grade 1 to 5 stage where you're crafting. Your role as a parent is to craft, among other things. So Emmy, is she 5th grade? Is that
4th?
She's 4th grade, and Jude's
first.
first grade. Okay, so
Yeah, they're kind of
Yeah.
on the other on opposite ends
on the
of
two opposite ends of that spectrum there. Talk to me a little bit, or talk to us a little bit about, as you're thinking about your kids and your parenting, what are some things that you're experiencing as a father? And side note, next week we're going to have your wife Joyce as our second guest, which we have not done. Last week, Colton and Charlotte aren't married.
Right.
They're just 2 different parents who in the same stage. This is the only time we're going to have a dad and then a mom talking about this stage of parenting. So it'll be very fun to see how consistent they are in their answers.
Do they tell the same stories?
We're gonna see all the little parenting inconsistencies and struggles are gonna bubble to the surface that hasn't been the case with anybody else. So welcome to that. Welcome to that. We'll be sure to point those out to you guys.
I told her last night, babe, we can't. She was like asking me some questions. Like, we can't compare notes too much because we gotta walk in
Gotta
our
be
own
organic.
lanes here.
Exactly. So when you think of the stage of elementary age, crafting, and the goal of nurturing their faith, just what's something that maybe it's been a little bit of an aha moment for you as a dad, like you didn't see it coming, and what's something that you just really appreciate about this particular season of parenting?
Well, there are a lot of aha moments that we face all the time. There are things that are surprising us all the time about the stages that we're in as we move through them. One of the things I really appreciate about Jude at his stage, he's, especially as a little boy, as a up and coming man, there's this strong drive in him for feelings of competence, and he has a really high desire for affirmation right now that I think at this stage is almost in excess of where his sister is. He really likes to kind of check back with me, like, did I do a good job? Was that good? Was that good? And so I can see him really learning to appreciate his wins, his successes, and kind of relish those a little bit, and try to help him look back and celebrate those little moments. Not let those small victories pass by. But he's starting to feel proud of himself when he does something that's really cool, when he does something that feels like an accomplishment to him, whatever that might be. And he's such a great buddy for me that I can take him along in a lot of stuff and watch him start to blossom. And even if it's something as simple as, tightening a screw or something like that, it's like, it makes him feel like, yes, I'm capable, I'm competent, I'm able, So I love that about him and where he's at. With Emmy is in a really expressive stage where she's wanting to craft. She's wanting to express her own self and her own identity. And with her, a lot of it has to do with really being a good listener with her and making sure she feels understood. She has a lot of questions. So I think a lot of what drives our spiritual development for them is just their own curiosity. They're innately curious about the world and about their creator and about how they fit in. I mean, we're all born in the middle of a story, and we're having to sort of figure out how we fit into that bigger, broader story. So I find that one of the things that, and I'm sure we'll come to this more later when it comes to more of the pragmatics of it, but one of the things that keeps our kids growing spiritually is they just have this insatiable curiosity, and they've got all these questions that bubble up, and it just serves as a springboard into all these really interesting and intriguing and challenging conversations that we have, and sometimes at the most inconvenient times. I mean, I think one of the things that I thought would come more easily for me as a longtime pastor, as a teacher, and I thought that I would be able to kind of knock it out of the park when my kids came to me with certain questions. and there have been some where I felt like, okay, nailed it on that one. But what what's difficult about it is they hit you with them at the most random times.
Yeah.
So it's not like you get
Right.
this chance to kind of premeditate your responses to
Right.
things and respond in
So
a way that is
true.
like, oh, this is perfect. I've already taken the time to hone this for their age level. And definitely we're intentional with certain things, but
Yeah.
but their questions are a big driver of their own spiritual
Mm-hmm.
development.
Well, what I love about that, or what kind of is popping out to me about that is, psychologists and child adolescent development and what's that called? What's before adolescence? What's the official phrase? Like
Before adolescence?
Oh, like pediatrician would be the child doctor.
Right. You mean
I don't know, like there's adolescent psychology, and what would be the psychology
Just
for
child?
elementary?
child psychology?
Yeah.
I guess.
I don't know.
Are we
That's
editing?
my best.
Preteen?
Are we going to edit this one? This one feels like feels
takes
like it's
too much
prime
work.
for editing. Child psychologists,
Yes, that works.
developmental experts would say that our personalities are largely formed by about age 4 or 5. Which makes sense, kind of how you're saying how your two kids are sort of approaching life and a little bit differently, even though they're in a similar stage of life, because their personalities have been by now fairly hardwired in there, which is what makes it so fun. Is that even though we can kind of say with some degree of confidence and accuracy, this is the stage that elementary kids are in. This is what how they're developing. These are some of the characteristics, but man, they all navigate it so differently, right? I mean, and the journey for how we raise one child who, forget about a 4 years difference in their ages,
A little less than
a
3.
3 year difference. I mean, you could be raising twins
Yeah.
in the exact same season and stage of life, but their little personalities of how they're navigating it, and how many questions, our kids they don't all ask the same amount of questions, the same questions, right? And it's just a fun thing to think about how uniquely wired our kids are, even though they're maybe in the same season.
Yeah, and I love what Doug, you said specifically about being curious, because then as our role as parents in this season, to offshoot what you're saying, Kurt, is it's not this canned, our kids should be acting like this and behaving like this. Is you need to be curious as a crafter, because you are crafting your kids in their unique shape.
Right.
And if we kind of go into it thinking this is the playbook of parenting and how kids should be, we miss out on those unique moments, things that you are observing as a dad that's unique about your daughter versus your son.
Right.
Like you can see that because you're saying that you're curious. And I also just want to underscore like how you said to celebrate and point out their victories. Like for Jude, it's like that is to me like classic crafter, because kids don't know what we should emphasize and what should be reiterated. And as parents, it's like you are emphasizing, no, this was good. You were brave. You did this. Look at this. And it reinforces that. And that's just a beautiful picture of a crafter to me.
Well, and the crafting piece of being willing to answer all the questions.
Yeah.
Because it's tempting as a parent to be like, bro, dial it back enough.
come
with the
back in 5
question.
years.
Come back in 5 years. Give me a break. I need a little. But what we're doing is, however we respond to their curiosity, their question asking, that is crafting in them a mindset or a worldview of whether it's safe or not to be curious.
So true.
Whether it's safe or not to go to mom and dad with my questions, my concerns, my doubts. And really, at this stage as a crafter, you are crafting how the next stage, which begins to get really vital when they're in junior high. If they know I can ask mom and dad stuff, because right now most of the questions they're asking aren't of extreme consequence. In junior high, they start having these questions and these doubts that have some pretty heavy ramifications. And if they don't know where to go to get those answers. And so what you're doing right now with your kids, especially with Jude, is saying, hey, because I'm answering all these less significant questions. Now they're significant to him in the moment. As a dad, they're not the big questions of life. They're going to come later. But what you're doing is you're crafting an environment that he will be able and feel comfortable asking the bigger questions later on. which I think is one of the bigger gifts we can give our kids is the safety to ask meaningful questions of mom and dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Okay.
we try not to be too judgmental of their questions because that we want to set the stage for future question asking and to know that the door is open. And we'd rather them ask those questions to us and not to other adults that may or may not be in their life or people at school or things like that might speak into something in a way that's completely errant.
That's good. Okay, Doug, as you are in this parenting stage of crafting and helping nurture your children's faith, what are one or two unexpected, really good experiences, stuff you've really enjoyed, and what are one or two struggles, things that have caught you off guard that have been harder as a dad than you thought they might be in this season?
One of the things that I'm really appreciating right now, like really like in the last weeks, months, is just how much they can experience and begin living out God's purposes in their life now. I don't know what it is. Like, I mean, I worked with students for many years and things like that. So it's not like this is like a foreign concept to me, but for some reason, I don't think I really had a full appreciation of just how much they can begin living their purposes right now. It's not just a training stage. Like, they're literally impacting other people for Jesus right now. You know, watching Amelia serve in Saddleback Kids is this beautiful experience. Watching her share her faith with her friends is a beautiful experience. Jude talking about his buddies at school who don't believe in God and him caring about that now is kind of, it's a little surprising to me, but there's just so much more spiritual depth, and it's not just training. They're doing things that already have stakes attached to them. They already matter.
Isn't it wild how tempting it is or how natural it is for us as parents and adults to underestimate what our kids are capable of?
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of seen my kids as, like, when I bring them to church with me and stuff, I kind of have seen them as, like, my tag-alongs in so many ways. Like, I'm here to do ministry, and they're coming along with me, and we're training, and we're working on our social skills and looking people in the eye and all those things. But that's not the case anymore. They're doing the ministry, and they're loving people, and they're making their mark right now. And so that's been a great awakening for me, for sure.
What's been tough? What's just been a rougher than expected piece of the journey?
Well, one thing that's been tough is it kind of ties back to the questions from earlier. I mean, the depth of the questions that they ask is shocking at times, you know? And again, it comes at you when you're not ready. You know, Emmy's having a hard time going to sleep tonight, and it's because she's thinking about pretty heavy duty questions, and then she wants to come talk to us about those. Or, you know, we did a Passover with our friends a few weeks ago, and we started talking about the first Passover. We talked about the Israelites in Egypt and this whole process, and they started asking these questions about the angel of death, and God sent this angel, and what is that? So we're having this really deep conversation about kind of the nature of who God is, and how does this piece of the story fit into the grander story and God's character, and these are very hard things to walk a kid through, because it's a very grown up and intense story that we're talking about. So, I mean, one of the things that's hard in that is you want to steward those moments well, because those conversations don't happen every single day. And so I think for me as a parent, I'm like, I want to make sure they have a very clear, accurate, and loving picture of who God is. So I want to steward this conversation really well. And sometimes you just, I mean, I'm someone who kind of prides myself on being very thoughtful and intentional and clear. And there are times where I'm like, okay, we're going to do our best on this one and see just how it comes out. We're driving in the car on our way back from our friend's house, and we're having this pondering moment on the nature of God. And that's heavy and tough. So that can be a real challenge. And those are the moments where I'm like, wonder if we're doing this right. We know there's some things we're doing right, but we don't know. We know there's a lot we're doing wrong too. Like, even as we're recording this podcast, I'm thinking, I want to try to just say the things that if Emmy and Jude listened to this in 10 years, they would say, yeah, that was true. They wouldn't be like, baloney.
You didn't do that.
Yeah, right, you know.
Trust me, that thought's gone through my mind more than once as we're recording this podcast. You know, if my adult children listen to this, are they going to agree that, you know, that I did this or I tried
rise
that?
Rise up and call me blessed or call me a liar, you know.
That's why I'm back in the corner, just not really saying much.
The safe zone.
Oh no, you said enough to incriminate yourself. You know, you've given some gold nuggets. Well, Doug, as we wrap up, I'm just going to kind of put you on the spot for a second. Because I want to give our listeners I think all of this has been helpful, but they're just pulling out little bits and pieces. I want you to leave them with one or two highly pragmatic. We try not to be overly prescriptive in this podcast, but every now and then I like to say, hey, here's two things you can do, or here's three things that have worked for us. Can you just give one or two or three, like tips, tricks, things that have worked for you in your parenting journey of nurturing your children's faith at home outside of church? Church is awesome. Church does a great job of nurture, but it's not the church's job. It's part of our role. Yeah. It's primarily your and Joyce's role to do that, right? Mm-hmm. So what are some things that you have found that actually work in your efforts to help nurture their young faith?
Yeah, well, I mean, some of them are just doing spiritual disciplines together as a family and in the little ways and where we can. I mean, we're not a family that has like a regular practice of sitting down and doing family Bible studies. We'll sit down and we'll open their adventure Bible, periodically, and we'll talk through the stories because they enjoy that. But I wouldn't say that we've been really super, ultra consistent in that. One thing that we're really consistent with is praying together frequently. We pray together every single night at bedtime, and we kind of take turns doing that. And in that, we're practicing what it looks like to have a conversation with God. And because kids we'll kind of just press play on the tape of the prayer that they did the last time they prayed. Right. And sometimes it's just like, oh my gosh, like get a little more creative, say a little bit more about that, So we explore that with them.
Grandma loves that you pray for her every night. But, there's other people in the world.
Yeah, that person hasn't been sick in 6 months, but they're stuck in the tape.
Yeah. Zoe prays for her food when we're going to bed, like the mealtime prayer. Thank you for this food. Thank you for this day. I'm like, wait, this is bedtime.
Or sometimes our kids will do it in reverse. Sometimes we're sitting down for a meal and it's just going to be a relatively quick prayer, but they start doing the full-on nighttime prayer. Like, hold up. We'll get to all that stuff. We have a whole prayer list. We'll get to that in a little while. One thing that it's connected to living out their purposes. It's connected to their faith. It has a lot to do with character. I would say that one thing I think we're doing right is we made a conscious decision to sort of codify our family's character, our family's identity. And now certainly there's the broader definition of our identity, which incorporates a much bigger cloud of attributes in our relationship to Jesus and our relationship to our church and all the 5 purposes and all these things. But early on, Joyce and I tried to we just tried to make it clear and simple what the essential characteristics of our family would be. And so Joyce and I talked about it quite a bit when the kids were really little, before they really could start instilling this stuff too much. And so one tip I would give is if you can come up with a way to make your family values really tangible and concrete and easy to remember, I think that is paying big dividends for us. For us, we settled on 3 things that we want to be as a family. And the 3 words are kindness, wisdom, and courage. And it's something that we constantly immerse our kids in. We wanted a really simple phrase that would get at the essence of who we want to be as people, the way we relate to each other and to others, and the way we take the biblical principles and apply them to our lives. And we wanted something that we could just remind them of constantly. And then we could couch things in it too. We can couch our praise in those attributes, and we can also couch our discipline in those attributes. And we thought, okay, well, every time there's a breach in our family or with a friend or in their behavior or whatever, or a success, it's probably going to be because there was either a win or a loss in the area of kindness. We weren't kind to somebody. Or there was a win or a loss in the area of wisdom. We made a foolish choice, or we made a great choice. That was awesome. Or in the area of courage. We knew what was right to do, but we didn't do it because we were too scared or because it was too hard. And so we tried to nail those down. So now, like, if I'm dropping the kids off at school, it's almost like this trigger in our brains. Like we hit the little bump bump as we're going up the driveway to drop the kids off, and it triggers me to be like, who are we going to be today? Kind, wise, and courageous. And those things have really have dug deep into their minds. Like I honestly believe that if Joyce and I were to go to heaven today and we could no longer make any investment in our kids, they would always remember that Joneses are kind, wise, and courageous.
Wow.
Emmy spontaneously made this bracelet for me, which has the family motto on it, kind, wise, and courageous.
That's awesome.
And it was literally, and I wear this every single day because that was one of the moments where I was like, these things are getting, I came home from work and she had made me this bracelet. And so it just gives us a way of like, that was
Wow.
so
Yep.
kind what you did.
Yep.
That was so wise what you did. And so they know what those words mean biblically and practically in their day to day. And we reinforce it. And now it's sunk into them so deeply that this is one of the other surprising things, or maybe not surprising, but I didn't see it coming, I guess, is that they hold us to it all the time. So they start to spot the inconsistencies
Yeah, of
in your
course. That's
behavior. And
amazing.
it's
Of
like,
course.
wow, you're picking these up a little too well. It's like, why do you get to say that word and I don't get to say that word? Or,
Yeah.
well, yeah.
Oh, that's such a good
Yes.
example of a crafter. I
Oh,
mean,
exactly.
just your stories, just everything that you share, just how you create that space for safe questions and how you are purposefully instilling these values and not leaving it to chance and reinforcing it. I mean, this bracelet for our YouTube watchers, you should show it. I mean, that is awesome. That
My
is
baby
just
girl.
the coolest thing.
Yeah.
And there it is, kind, wise, and courageous.
Well, Doug, thanks so much for joining us. If you're a listener and you know a friend or a colleague who has a child or children in the elementary age, in the crafting season of parenting, man, we'd love it if you would pass this podcast on to them. This one may not apply to you because your kids are in a different season, but you probably know somebody who is crafting their children and nurturing their faith. Doug, tons of thanks for joining
So
us.
good.
Pleasure. Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
Really
me.
so
appreciate
much.
it. Everybody, thanks for listening, and we will see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining the On Purpose Parents podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, you can help us by rating and reviewing our podcast on iTunes. If you're listening on our Saddleback Parents YouTube channel, please like and leave a comment. Also, remember to subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends. You can connect with us by texting the word parents to the number 83000, following us on Instagram at Saddleback Parents, and emailing your comments to parents@saddleback.com. As a huge thank you, you can browse our hundreds of free resources at onpurposeparents.com, all created to help you win at parenting. We'll catch you next time.